Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and just spreading positivity and some inspiration. We're all about positivity here on the show, and with me today I've got a very special guest. She's wrestled all over the world in the indie promotions, worked with legends, and just got an inspiring story that she's going to share with us here today. The one and only Black Dahlia. Welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
Guys.
Hi there.
Hey, thank you for having me on. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Good. It's evening time, so that means it's my morning. So I am up. I am ready for this interview, and I'm exhausted. So energy drink in hand. Let's do this.
All right, let's do it. So tell me about your upbringing and childhood. Where did you grow up?
Okay, so my backstory is interesting. I traveled a lot as a little girl. My mom was born in Germany and she came to America and then met my dad, and she a lot of my family is out in Arizona and then in Ohio, so I just kind of been traveling a lot, even went down to Kentucky. And throughout my childhood I never stayed in one spot. I went to like 3 different middle schools, 2 different elementary schools, 2 different high schools, 2 different colleges. Like I traveled a lot growing up. I was never in one spot. But one thing that was consistent was theater and sports. So, and then dance and cheer. I grew up involved with theater, and I thought I was going to be an actor. And then I always was brought up in sports. Like from the age of 2, I started ballet. I started tap, jazz, gymnastics all the way out to my senior year. And thankfully, where I had an older sister, I was able, instead of at the cutoff date at the age of 4 to get involved with sports, I was able to be on the team at the age of 2. So I've been involved with like basketball, softball, volleyball since a very, very young age, all the way up to senior year. So that's kind of like the gist of my upbringing. Is if I was always go, go, go. I was always involved with sports.
Yeah, it seems like, you got started, that young, and you're still able to go out there and do that.
Yeah.
That's just so amazing. Been involved in so many different things. Tell me about, your theater background. I know I was watching some podcast interviews with you talking about, getting into theater and acting. What motivated you to want to become an actress?
Right. So growing up as a little baby, I remember watching black and white films on the TV. And growing up, there was a channel called TCM, Turner Classic Movies. And I just remember being captivated as a little baby, let alone toddler, let alone child. And I used to call them princesses. And I was like, I'm going to be a princess, which in the end, it was I wanted to be an actor. And I fell in love with the art and the over theatrics and over like how you can tell a story with your facial expressions. And one of my first roles was, my family was religious as I was being brought up, and they had me in like the church play as like baby Jesus. So I technically have had an early start to everything.
Oh,
like
wow.
from theater as a baby to when I wasn't allowed on the cheer squad yet because I was 2 years old. They allowed me to, where I had a 5-year-old sister. So like it, like, so I've literally all the way throughout from like being in diapers to now as an adult, like I've always been involved somehow in theater and sports. And the way I got involved with acting is I just started like getting involved with like local theater, churches. And then also I got involved with school, and then that's when as I got older, a lot of indie companies like for film projects started reaching out. And that's around the same time I got involved with wrestling though.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you going to school for theater, did you get involved?
I did.
you get involved with like plays at all too? Like
Yeah, the craziest thing, and this is gonna sound so narcissistic, and I don't mean it to come off this way, but okay, so growing up, I was always like the younger one on the team. So it always went to the best reader. So like the eldest girl would get the lead. So I always got the next character. And they all like unfortunately there wasn't a lot of girl parts. So I had to play a boy a lot. But I always was like the underdog growing up because I was the youngest. But then as I became an adult, like this is where it goes to sound narcissistic, but I would like show up for an audition and they'd be like, okay, you got the part. And then I wouldn't even have to audition. And I'm like, what does that mean? So getting involved with theater and film, my whole life it's just been like I loved it. And then getting involved with wrestling, it's kind of like both worlds colliding from sports
yes.
to theater. It's almost like I was born to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah, I mean it being in professional wrestling combines, so many different things, film,
Mhm.
acting, dance. It's just
Yes.
it's all like
Athletics, stunt work, physical fitness. It's everything. It's all the world combined, and it's really cool.
were you a big fan growing up?
Absolutely not.
Really?
My family, like, of course, okay, so um, with my family, like, of course, everyone heard of Hulk Hogan, and then slowly everyone started hearing of The Rock, and then now recently, like John Cena and Batista. But back in the early 2000s, like when I was a kid, I could have been around John Cena. I could have been around Vince McMahon and I would never have known who that was. So growing up, no, I wasn't. But like in pop culture, you always had like Hulk Hogan in like the 80s and 90s movies. So you kind of knew who that guy was.
Yeah.
And he had his own reality show. So other than that, no, I didn't like unfortunately, I was brought up by a family that they thought wrestling was trash and they thought it was very trashy and beneath them. And it unfortunately, like as a wrestling fan, you don't get it. Or as a wrestler, you don't get it because this is our world. But for outsiders, there's a world outside of professional wrestling, and unfortunately, they're very toxic. Like a lot of them, not everyone, but people that aren't wrestling fans and they look at it, they think it's that fake shit. They think it's that, excuse my language, but they think it's fake and they think it's trash. They make fun of us and they bring up MMA. So unfortunately, that was my upbringing. Is it was just that fake stuff, and it was not respected. There was no. I was never educated on what professional wrestling was until I got involved with the business.
Right, right. So who was it that kind of turned you on to it saying, go after this?
So I was in the process of getting involved with low budget movies. I'm 18 years old. I just got the lead in a local play. They're going to film a Netflix movie over here, and I'm going to be an extra in that. I'm auditioning for the New York Film Academy. I'm juggling all this at once, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be an actor, whatever. This woman I was going to college with, because I was going to community college at the time, getting an associate's degree before I was going for the New York Film Academy. So as that was happening, this woman at the local college was like, she was like 10 years to my senior. So she was like in her late 20s, 30s. And she was so nice. And she's like, there's this thing called professional wrestling, and they go around the local towns, just a local small little indie company. And she's like, you'd be perfect for this. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you're a model, you're an actor. She's like, you would be so good for this job. And I'm like, I don't know if I feel comfortable wrestling, like fake fighting or whatever I said at the time. I was like, and she's like, this would be great for your resume. And she's like, you're not going to wrestle, you're going to be a valet. And I looked at her, and mind you, I'm like 17, 18 at the time. And I'm like, valets park cars. How is this good for my acting resume? Parking people's vehicles. What are you talking about?
Right.
And that's when she She's like, no, 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 that's the name for a manager, like the girls that walk the guys out. If you're a baby face, I'm like, baby face. And she's like, good guy. If you're a good guy, you just be all pretty and kind and help. But if you're a bad guy, you help cheat to win. That's how she explained it to me. And I'm just like, I don't know. And then here I am like 10 years later. And it's like, oh, okay.
So when you find out, about what pro wrestling is, and wanting to go into it and going in as a valet, like, did you study any tape? Did you study
Yeah.
videos of who are
Or
like some of the people that you looked up to?
So I'm a perfectionist. And even though I wasn't a fan when I got involved, I didn't have respect for the business when I got involved because it was new. And I'm like, what is this? I'm getting a feel of the place. I had no passion, no desire. It was something to put on my resume because what would make me stand out? Professional wrestling, ballet. What's that? Against the other models, against the other actors. So getting involved, I'm like, I am going to take this so seriously. I looked into it like a college project. I looked into it like a serious job that I'm getting paid for. I was like, I'm going to Google and go to YouTube and watch videos and study ballets. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot, but there are some legends. I studied Macho Man with Miss Elizabeth, and I was like, oh, she's pretty. Oh, she captivates. She kind of steals the show, but she doesn't outshine the guy. She's like kind of like complimenting him and adding to. And I'm like, that's intriguing. Scary Sherry. I'm like, oh wow, that spunk, that the theatrics. I was like, interesting. And then Woman and just all these random talented women. And I just I slowly I didn't fall in love yet. I was intrigued and I liked it. And I was like, that's what I want to be. I don't want, because when I approached the independent company in Kentucky, oh man, it was like lamb to the slaughter. It was like, oh, I was a little girl and I was not prepared for professional wrestling. Let's just say that. And they wanted to put a name, like, you got to think this was 2011. So they wanted to put Rainbow Glitter is my name, or Candy Cane Sparkle. That's the names, like, that's how absurd the names were
Yeah,
that
like
they were trying to.
generic.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, like, they wanted me to have like stripper names, so to speak. They
Sure.
wanted me to have, and I was just like, no, I'm a serious theater actor and I'm taking this on as a project. You will not give me a stripper's name. And this was 2011. This was
Hmm.
before the women's revolution. And
Yeah.
everyone looked at me like I was a problem because
Hmm.
I was taking it seriously. So they're like, no, you're not supposed to, you're supposed to be just boobs and be silent and do as we say. And I'm like, but this is like, I'm taking this seriously. I,
Right.
I want to be respected. So I created the Black Dahlia gimmick. I am the first ever Black Dahlia in professional wrestling. And a lot of people are like, oh, Dahlia, like the flower. And I'm like, no, Black Dahlia, like the murder. And a lot of people, are you aware of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia?
I've heard about it a little bit.
Yeah. So in 2011, it wasn't really that popular. There might have been one movie, and it might have been, I don't know if American Horror Story has come out at that time yet, but they did do a segment on the
Yeah.
Black Dahlia in the first
Yeah.
the first American Horror Story. So I've always known of the Black Dahlia, and I always found that so fascinating. As an actor, I studied all of these 1920s, 30s, 40s actors, and her story stood out. She's just a young nobody, Elizabeth Short, and she unfortunately was murdered. And everyone thinks the Joker smile is the cuts. No, no, no. It was the Black Dahlia, an actual real serial killer killed this woman and gave her the cuts, and then the Joker stole that from it. But um and I completely took the idea of being a stripper and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna be this unsolved murder case in America. I was like, why not?
So you created the gimmick yourself,
I
almost.
did. I did. I 100% created the Black Dahlia gimmick by myself in 2011, and
Wow.
as far as I know, I think only one other independent wrestler tried to do it back in 16 or 17, but she's not around anymore. So I'm the only Black Dahlia in the first. And then in 2016, I created my friend and I, Nathaniel, he goes by Nate Hewitt, the Killbilly. Him and I created in 2016 the chainsaw urban legend gimmick. And we
Oh,
were the
cool.
first ever urban legends of professional wrestling using cryptid zoology. So no one had done that before.
So let's talk about how you tried to make that transition from
Right.
valet to wrestling. How did that come about?
Okay, so unfortunately, and this is going to be very political, but um, the world of professional wrestling was different 10 years ago, 12 years ago. In 2011, I remember studying WWE. And when I turned on the channel, mind you, I'm a 18-year-old little girl that has battled bulimia and anorexia. I have battled eating disorders my entire life. And I turn on the channel to study wrestling because I want to take this valeting seriously.
Right.
And this is nothing against the wrestlers. They're just doing their job. But unfortunately, the storyline they were given, it was like the Bella twins were fat shaming. I think her name was Caitlin, and they were doing a segment with like cake and making her eat it and calling her fat when she was super skinny and in amazing shape, but she had a little more meat on her. And I just remember seeing that and I'm like, dear God, how disgusting.
Was that Mickey James? I think it was Mickey James and Lay Cool.
She had the double hair. She had blonde and then black under, and I think her name was Caitlin,
Yeah, it
and
was
then
yeah,
another.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
it
got you.
broke my heart. Broke my heart. And nothing against, they were doing their job. That was a storyline. They're not,
Hmm.
obviously nothing against them,
Right.
but
Yeah.
that's the wrestling community I was brought up in. And it was even more toxic and gross on the independent scene. So I'm like, I'm not even in love with the business. Like, this is so abusive. Like, the modeling world isn't even this bad. I was like, what is wrong with you guys? And it was like that on the indies. So it took me 2 years in the business as a valet, as a manager, to even fall in love with the business because it was so abusive and toxic. And like, I had everyone was aware of, I was in a great shape too. I was a healthy young kid, but having a past eating disorder, I had people in Kentucky, like actual female talent that was way older than me. They would tell the marks in the crowd that were like family members and stuff to call me Miss Piggy. And I never gave consent. That wasn't a part of the storyline. They weren't even a part of a storyline with me. They were doing something else. Like, I was literally just managing this guy and he was wrestling this guy. We had nothing to do with them. So it wasn't even a storyline. They were bullying me. And I was smaller than them and better shape than them. And they still tried to attack me. And that's the wrestling community I was involved in at just such an 18, 19-year-old kid. And these people are in their late 20s, early 30s. And they treated me really badly. And it was really hard because there wasn't the call out movement yet. There wasn't screenshots yet.
The
There
speaking out
wasn't,
movement. Yeah.
yeah, there wasn't anything I could do about it. And you just had to take it. I remember being on the indies and this woman, and she's still involved with the business unfortunately, but she's old enough to be my mom. She would want everyone to go to the bars without her, and the bar was connected to the independent show, and all the marks would go after, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to go there. And then, what would it look like, a heel and baby face sitting at the bar right after a show, and you're supposed to believe the feud that's going to continue next week. So I felt like it ruined the illusion of professional wrestling and storytelling for the fans. But I was 18, 19, so I couldn't even get in. And she was like celebrating her birthday or whatever, and all these wrestlers were going. And I'm like, oh, we have to go home. I have a 4-hour drive. And to this day, that woman hates me and thinks I snubbed her. And it's like, no, I was 19 years old. I can't get into a bar. I'm not going to drink alcohol illegally. I'm not going to hang out with all the fans in the crowd where I'm a heel at this show. And then ironically, the reason that woman didn't like me is she said I was an actor getting involved with the business.
Hmm. I mean,
It was
you're
bad. 2011 was bad.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That's
Oh,
horrible.
there's so much more, but it's just I just, I'll write a book about it one day and I'll name names one day, but it's scary because all the people that fat shamed me, body shamed me, bullied me, cyber bullied me, um, treated me badly, the majority of them are still in the business to this day. And they're pretending to be mom and dads of the business and being nice. And it's like, man, if I had screenshots of 2016, because this continued all the way up to 2016. It was insane.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, but you were able to get your
Get
training.
past it.
You
Yeah.
got
So
past it.
so you asked me, how did I go from being a manager to a wrestler? And the answer is I had all these people bullying me because I was the pretty girl. They bullied me because I had something like I had an opportunity to try to make a career out of this where they didn't. They were older, they didn't have any acting background, they didn't take any acting classes, they didn't go to the gym, they didn't have any weight training background. They never got trained as professional wrestlers. They were just like small town people in tights that were just playing indie superstar, right? So when they saw me taking it seriously, taking acting classes, going to the gym, getting into health and fitness, and that kind of, triggered them. And I was like, dude, I was just doing this as a side job to get a little money and to get a little resume. So to answer the question is their absurd hate actually made me become a professional wrestler because it's like, oh no, oh no, 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 no. I'm young. I'm an athlete. I'm an actor. I have the biggest resume. I'm not just some middle-aged person that just wants to throw in some spandex from Hot Topic and play indie superstar because they've been watching WWE since it was WWF. Like I was like, oh no, I am going to be a professional wrestler and show you how it's done. So it was kind of my stubbornness, like fighting bullies. Like that's the way I handled bullies was like, I'll show you. It's like I will show you I am worthy and good enough because I know my self worth and I know I can do this. So
Yeah.
that's how I got involved with like becoming a wrestler. And then I was like, okay, what are they doing that's wrong and what can I do? So actually get trained. There's so many people that are not trained on the indies. There's so many people that have not gone to school or lie about their training and just go to seminars and then that's it. I was like, I'm going to go to a professional wrestling school and I'm going to learn from the best of the best. And that's when I found Funaki. And that's when I started training under him.
Yeah. What was it like working with Funaki? He seems like a nice guy too.
Really good guy. Always has a smile on his face. Really good technical trainer. He's in the ring with you. He's right on top of you. He's shown you, like, he taught me the art of locking up. I will always forever, and everyone's like, that's what you learned from this WWE legend. And it's like, but that's the principle. And what I took from there is I was under him for 6 months and he taught me the art of it all starts with that proper crisp snap. And if you have a weak lockup, it's done. It's like the match is done. And it really resonated with me. So training under him for 6 months was intense because I worked night shift. I worked all night shift, 10-hour night shift. I get off in the morning, go to the gym, work out, and then I would go to wrestling school and then train under him at 10 a.m. for like 2 or 3 hours. And then I had a shower and try to get some sleep because then I had to go and work night shift. And he had Monday through Saturday classes. Like if you wanted to be there, he would be there. And it was in a Spartan gym that had no air conditioning in San Antonio, Texas. There was no air conditioning. And it was like the ring, you could lift up a garage door. And then the San Antonio, Texas heat was like right there, even at 10 a.m. And I was just like, we're going to die. And we didn't though. So
Yeah, I mean, you applied yourself, you took it seriously, And you
Yes, that's the main thing. I always wanted to do it the respectful way. I didn't want a stripper's name. I wanted an actual authentic character. I didn't want to go to Hot Topic, get spandex, and say, I'm a wrestling superstar. I wanted to have professional gear made and I wanted to be professionally trained by the best. And I just felt like I was doing it the right way. And before I went to Funaki's, it was 2015 when I went to Funaki's, 2015 into 16. And one of the people that told me that I need to do this, it was Bobby Blaze himself. And Bobby Blaze, huge Smoky Mountain legend, old
Mhm.
school champion. He's amazing. He's like, kid, you got something. He's like, you're wasting it away being just a valet. He's like, be a wrestler. You can make a living out of this. Do this. And I'm like, okay, sir. And that, like, I have video footage of him talking to me in the ring, and it's just like this makeshift little ring in the Appalachian Mountains. And it's like such humble beginnings. And it started to rain, and he's like, be a professional wrestler. And that's when I packed one suitcase, just literally all my belongings in one suitcase. I have nothing else. And I just went to Funaki's. I was like, let's do this.
Yeah. And you also worked with Rikishi as well.
So as I'm training under Funaki, WrestleMania 2016 is in Dallas.
Yep.
You know, we're in San Antonio. Let's go up to Dallas. All the wrestlers are doing it. Let's go. And the show I was booked on was, I think it was called Territory League, and it was under Rikishi. And this coolest setup though was this big stadium of WrestleMania, this big auditorium right there in
Mhm.
Dallas. They have the at least in 16, I'm sure they've changed, but they had the concrete, you know, parking lot right
Oh
here, and
yeah.
there's the stadium, there's the posters. Right there in the parking lot was this random little building hosting a indie show, and that was the one I was on. And
Nice.
I'll never forget looking out, standing outside that door, and behind me is the little indie, and I have video footage of it, but behind me is the little company I'm on inside, and I'm standing looking outside, and there's WrestleMania, and I'm like, bet. And the funniest thing is the two people that were on the card with me that night was Sashi Black. Is that her name? Sashi or Sachi? What's her name? Shoot, I am horrible at names. Sashi Blackheart.
Shotzi.
Sachi
Shotzi.
Blackheart. She
Shotzi,
was on the
yes.
show. She was on the show, and then Raquel was on the show.
Yep. Yep. Raquel
Yeah,
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez. Yeah,
Yeah.
those two girls were on the card with me, and now look where they're at. And then, yeah, I got put in a wheelchair. My bad. We met him at the show though after being on the card, and he immediately, like, I'll never forget approaching him because he's a beast. He's like a
He's a big
force.
guy.
Like
Yes.
he just doesn't. It's like he's a big guy, and he's like I'm short. Okay, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm like 5'2". I'm a short little girl, and um, Rikishi is like a 7-footer to me. Like, and I'm just like, dang. I was like, that guy is just like intimidating and impressive. And it's like, who is that guy? What does he do? So he also has the it factor though about
Yes.
him. So, so I was like, that guy does something. He's a superstar. And Nate's like, that's Rikishi. So my friend Nate, huge wrestling fan. I'm talking, he watched it when he was in diapers, like
Oh, I bet.
huge wrestling mark. And he was freaking out because this is one of his childhood superstars growing up in the 90s and 2000s. He's like, oh my God, that's Rikishi. And so then as soon as we approach, like I look at it as a business and professional, and I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to meet someone that's done what we're all trying to do in the business and make a living out of this. I'm like, this is cool. This is the person I want. I want to be in a room with smarter people. I want to be in a room with richer people. You know, I want to be in a room with someone that has done something that I want to accomplish. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. So approaching it, I was like, oh, cool. I get, he's going to know I exist. He's going to know me. And then Nate whispers in my ear, that's Rikishi, as we're walking. And I'm just like, oh no. I was like, oh, what does that mean? Oh no, should I be like pooping my pants right now? Like, what am I supposed to do? And so Nate made me nervous before I met him, but I was like, hello, sir. And he's like, immediately such a good person, but he's like, one of the first words out of his mouth was, come to my school. And I was like, what? And he's like, you two need to come to my school. I want you two out there. And I was like, oh my God, where is this? And he's like, Los Angeles, California. I was like, what? I was like, LA. I was like, what do you mean? I have a suitcase. So when do you want me there? I was like, okay, bye, Funaki. No disrespect towards him, but our time in San Antonio was up, and it's like, okay, that was good. 6 months of training, I'm feeling good, and that's when we're like, we got to save money. Don't go run around and get huge bookings on the indie. We got to save money so we can go to Rikishi's. So I came to Ohio. I was working my shoot job that I still have right now, and I've had it for 7 years now. And I was just saving all my money. Nate was taking like IWA Mid South bookings at the time. He was taking because it was right next door, so he
Right.
wasn't really taking many bookings. And we're like, we got to save money for Rikishi. So we flew out to LA as we were saving money just to test out the waters out there. And the school is so welcoming and so good. And then we're like, we're gonna do this. So we flew out of LA. We're like, okay, let's definitely save money. We saved money, and then at the end of 16, we drove out, packed up our one suitcase. He had one, I had one, and we drove out from Ohio all the way across America to Los Angeles, California to sleep out of our vehicle to train under Rikishi.
Wow. I mean, that's a huge sacrifice. I mean, that's just
No.
it's crazy.
I know. And it's like it's even crazier when I say our work that we transferred, thankfully, it's been our job that will go nameless. They have been so good to us, and they let us transfer to different buildings. And but unfortunately, it's night shift. It's a 10-hour night shift, and sleeping out of your vehicle in the daytime is hard. Sleeping out of your vehicle in the daytime in LA, even worse. Sleeping out of your vehicle in the daytime in LA with no air conditioning was a nightmare.
Oh, I believe it.
We did that for just under a year.
Wow.
And the only reason we left, I was put in a wheelchair. I had been homeless for 7 months. I all my money was just going to the school. I had hardly any money for food. I went days without food. I worked a full-time night shift job to go work out and shower. I was really hygienic. I really made sure I brushed my teeth and showered every day. But I had to go to the gym. The 24-hour Planet Fitness is right there in Burbank. As of 2017, there's a Planet Fitness right there next to the Burbank airport. And I would just try to sleep in a parking lot and try not to get kicked out. And it was really scary. And sleeping in the daytime was awful. My air conditioning wasn't working, couldn't leave the vehicle running. So I had to get like this battery operated fan, but it would just blow hot air in my face. So I was getting sun poisoning like every day. And there was times where I had no access to a toilet, so I had to like use the bathroom in a cup. And it was just like it was awful. And I was like, this is for wrestling. This is because I fell in love with this sport. This is because I fell in love with this. And I'm like, and I'm pooping in a cup. And it really upset me. And I was like, man, all I wanted to do was take this seriously. All I wanted to do was be the best of the best and be professional. And there I was using wet wipes on myself and brushing my teeth with the water bottle. And I remember being so proud of myself getting healthy and out there. And I would go to this meal prep store, and they would have meal prep containers, which was really expensive. It was like $13 per container. But if you go there the day they expire, so you could still eat them, they'd be for like $6. So I could take that to my work and microwave it and have a healthy fitness protein meal. But for $6, it would be the same if I went to McDonald's and spent $6. So I was doing that out in LA as I was training under Rikishi. And I remember spending almost $100 on vitamins because I was like, I got to get all the vitamins in, you know. I gotta make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I bought gummy vitamins, put them in my vehicle, and they all melted.
Oh man, that
Waste of
sucks.
money. I was so heartbroken. And I was like, God, I'm dumb. and and then I remember the day when the accident happened. I was in the ring and Rikishi was there at class. Like sometimes he's off doing something with WWE, or sometimes he was off working conventions, you know, getting like these are paid gigs, you know, and
Yeah.
going to signings and autographs, and sometimes even like porn conventions and sex conventions. He would go and be at those with all those beautiful women and men. And I was like, all right, Rikishi, whatever. So, but he was there that day. And I played sports. I was a ballerina at the age of 2. I'm pretty sure that's not healthy. And I abused my body all throughout sports my entire life. Like you don't understand. Like I would be fresh out of school doing a cheer squad thing, and then after cheer I would be changing and getting in my basketball jersey and going and playing a basketball game, and hopefully I'm only 30 minutes late. Like I was juggling so much from the age of 2 to senior year, and then I got involved after senior year. I got involved with professional wrestling and weightlifting, so my body has taken a lot of hits. And I suffered with a thing called plantar fasciitis in both of my feet, and it was really bad out in LA. Sleeping in my vehicle, getting poor circulation in my feet, working a hard job where I'm dealing with pallet jacks and unloading semi trucks. And I'm like one of the only females doing it at the time. And then going to the gym, going to wrestling training 3 hours a day to, it's just hard on your body. And my plantar fasciitis was really bad in both feet. And the day I was injured, I tore both ligaments in my feet.
Yikes.
Yeah. And basically, you know that iconic shot of Vince McMahon when he tore his quads or something, or his
Mm-hmm.
knees, and you know
Yep.
how he like dove in, tore them, and then he couldn't get back up.
Right. Mm-hmm. I do remember that.
He tore his quads. That was me with my feet, and oh god, I heard the pops. And I heard it went pop pop as I slammed down on the concrete, and so I was outside of the ring, went over outside of the ring. And then when I popped up, like the whole class was on the other side of the ring because I was doing like a match,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole class was on the other side of the ring watching with Rikishi. And I just remember popping up and then not feeling my feet, like I couldn't support my weight, and I just collapsed. And as Nate watched, my friend that was with me experiencing the homelessness and everything with me, he was sitting like next to Rikishi, and he saw me pop up and then pop down and disappear, and he's like, his heart just sunk, and he's like, oh no. And then I popped back up again and I got back in the ring. I was going off of adrenaline, but I knew something was wrong. I knew I couldn't support my weight. I knew I was a young kid, and I was like, my coach is watching, I can't embarrass myself, so I'm like, do it. And I just kept going, and I did not stop for 2 months. I stayed in LA. I stayed homeless. I continued my hard manual labor job on concrete for 10 hours. I continued wrestling. I continued training for 2 months with torn ligaments on the bottom of both my feet. And it never got any better. And I really did some damage on my feet by doing that.
Wow.
Yeah. With my job, I have great insurance now. That's why I keep it. It pays the bills, and I've had it for 7 years. I make close to 20 an hour, and it has great insurance. But where I was just like 2 years in, I didn't have the proper insurance yet with my work. So I went 2 months in LA just scared, just a scared kid. Like I'm like, I sprained my ankles, I sprained my ankles. And it's like, honey, these are not sprained ankles. It's not getting any better. And that's when I had to tell Rikishi, I was like, I'm sorry, I tried. And then that's when he got me and Nate in front of the whole entire class and said, these two kids never asked for anything. These two kids were homeless and never got a single ounce of help from anyone. They never asked for help and never received it. And he said, these are professional wrestlers.
Wow. That's just
And Yeah. And 6 years of my life, I have been injured. That was 6 years ago. Right when the Mae Young Classic was starting that summer, right when I thought I was going to go and audition for that, right when I thought I was going to go audition for WWE that summer, all this stuff was happening for women. And I was like, this is what I dreamed of. It's 2016 or 2017. It's 2017. And I'm like, 2011, that little girl would have dreamed of this and it's happening. And I was put in a wheelchair when it happened.
Oh man, that's just so devastating.
And not saying I have an ego, like I could have been on it or anything. Like I was gonna audition,
Yeah,
but not saying I would have
you
got it, but
you
not
had
saying I would have got.
dreams.
Yeah, yeah, but I was like that close. And I'm just like, man, I did it the right way. You hear about the legends that take a piece of bread, put toothpaste on it, and eat it, and that's all they can eat. Cans of tuna in a vehicle, living from city to city. You hear about all the legends doing this. I did that to be put in a wheelchair.
Man, you really made a lot of sacrifices and just and went through so much to get to where you wanted to be. And
Yeah.
you know, you are a true professional wrestler without a doubt. You're a fighter, and um, I am so sorry that that happened to you. Were you able to get surgery? Were you able to
Right.
get it fixed?
So as I said, at the time, I didn't have health insurance through my work. And thankfully now I do. It's a blessing. Uh, so I went 2 months of damaging what is already damaged. And it took me 8 months to have surgery. 8 months of just walking and re-tearing a torn ligament because it's not fusing back together. They tried to, there's photos online. I documented all of this. I've been obnoxious for 6 years. I've documented everything because it was scary. It is scary. I worked 10 hours night shift last night and I had to work out, shower, go to bed just so I can wake up for this interview. And last night I cried because my feet were in so much pain. It was so much pain. It's not like, oh, I have a little bit of a stiff back and no big deal. Or, oh, I once broke an ankle and it swells when it rains. Everyone's pain is valid, but that's not what I'm going through. I, for 6 years, I've had 4 surgeries. I had my last two last year, my third and fourth one last year. The scars go up my legs, and basically where I tore my ligaments, they try to fuse the muscle back together. They had me on bed rest for months. They gave me steroid shots directly into both feet, cortisone shots, and I had two hard casts on those like generic white moldings and on both feet, and I was just wheelchair bound. And off and on, they would have me for like a month like that, and then a month out of it to see if I can walk, and then a month back with the steroid shots. And that was abusive steroid shots, and I wasn't supposed to have that many. I ended up having 10 within 6 months. It was insane. Um, then they're like, okay, since your muscle's not fusing back together, we're gonna have to do surgery. So what do you think when an athlete or anyone tears a muscle? They're gonna stitch that muscle back together. They're gonna fuse that back together surgically. They didn't do that. They released my muscle completely. They just tore it all the way. And it's called like the fasciitis release surgery or something. And they didn't tell me they were doing that. And they did it at the same time. They operated on both feet at the same time. And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do one foot at a time because you risk death, you risk amputation, you risk blood clots, you risk so much going on with both feet being operated at the same time. And you're supposed to do just one. So my other surgeries, they did one leg at a time. So, but the first two, they did at the same time. And I did not know they were releasing. And if you Google it, it's either, oh, wow, that took away my pain, or I'm in chronic pain the rest of my life. Those are the statistics. And a lot of people that suffer with plantar fasciitis are like, oh, I can have this release surgery and then it just take away all my pain. It did not do that. without my consent, they released my muscles in my arch without me knowing, and my bones started collapsing. Like, it took me like, I went to 11 doctors, and I went through each one: a regular doctor, a foot specialist, another foot specialist, a chiropractor, a nerve specialist, a neurologist. I went to a sports medicine doctor, and then the sports medicine doctor sent me to another sports medicine doctor that went to school 4 more years than him, but he was specifically a sports injury doctor for the feet. So I went to the boom, boom, boom. I climbed the ladder for almost 3 years. I was in a wheelchair after that surgery, trying to find answers on why I can't walk. Was I hydroplegic? No. Wasn't I amputation? No. But why can't I walk? And it wasn't like I lost the feeling in my legs. I was in so much pain just sitting, let alone standing and trying to support my weight, let alone trying to walk. I couldn't do it. And I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a trained, I've been in sports my whole life. I've been hit by baseballs, line drives right in the face. I know pain. And I could not walk or stand. I couldn't stand and shower. So for years, I was in a wheelchair, gaining weight and being depressed and being not mentally well. Like, my mental health deteriorated. And I didn't think I'd ever walk again. I didn't think I'd ever run again. I didn't think I'd ever live again. And I had no one like helping my mental health, telling me you're going to be okay. I had family members saying, wrestling's trash and you deserve that. You asked for this. Wrestling is trash and I guess you're not cut out for it, honey. I had my parents say this to me. I had my other distant relatives say this to my parents, and they get really laid back to me. I had people basically saying I'm where I deserve, because how dare me pursue professional wrestling. And I'm like, okay, this is what I have to face. So I'm a model and actor that gets involved with wrestling in 2011, and I'm bullied because I have all these credentials. Then I get injured, and my family bullies me and mocks me and says I'm not cut out to be a wrestler. And it's like, I get it from both ends, and it's like, why? I'm a Pisces and I'm kind. Why? And they just didn't want the best for me. And so finally, when I found this NFL doctor, he's like, listen, your bones are collapsing. They don't have that natural spring since that muscle was released. You will have your bones cave in, and I'll have to do a reconstructive surgery on rebuilding your foot, and you do not want that. You're young. He said, learn how to walk again, fight, lose some weight, do it. You're young. So I did it, and it took an entire year. Everyone, there's some haters out there. There's some people that mock me and say, well, if you're really disabled, if you're really handicapped, you're still working, you're still doing this, it must not be that bad. And it's like, oh no, it is. When people say, well, you're not an amputee, it's like, there's so many people that are far worse off than me, and I respect that. But then there's people that are not as bad off as me, and they're not doing what I'm doing. I'm fighting. And it took me an entire year to get out of a wheelchair, to learn how to walk again. It didn't happen overnight. I was vomiting, I was shaking. I didn't have the insurance where I could go to a therapist and then teach me how to walk between the bars. I had to take myself to Planet Fitness, get out of a wheelchair, stand on a treadmill and sit and shake and try not to vomit. And I had to teach myself how to walk again. It awful. And it took me an entire year to get to 10 hours.
Wow.
But I did it. And I'm able to go to work now instead of, living off the government, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess it took me all these 6 years and 4 surgeries to realize that I'm going to be in pain the rest of my life. And all I can do is try to make it livable, if that makes sense.
Right. You're a strong woman, Dahlia. You're a fighter.
Thanks.
And I hope that, things can work out to where you make it back in the ring at some point if that's what you want to do.
Basically, right now, I'm focused on my job, letting my feet get used to my job now that I'm recovering from my fourth surgery. Um, I see my foot specialist, my new one, in the fall at the end of summer. And right now, I'm slowly weight training again. And then the next step is to get medically cleared to wrestle, because right now I'm taking interviews like podcasts, and right now I'm starting to take appearances, and I'm hoping to get medically cleared to start wrestle soon. Because
Yeah.
for those that are watching, I can't re-injure what's not there anymore. I can't get re-injure something that's been released. And then my other surgeries was for the nerve damage. It was like a canal surgery thing, so I can't re-injure. I can break my leg tomorrow, but that's not going to be what I already hurt. So that's what I'm trying to say is when I get back in the ring, I'm going to be as normal as I possibly can.
Yeah, like it's going to be a different Dahlia almost.
Yeah.
Same person, but you've got a different mindset, and
Yeah.
passion is still there. It's just going to be channeled maybe in a different light than you were originally planning to.
Right. Like
Have you,
I was so innocent before, and then now after going through this trauma, it's like I'm a grown woman now. I'm not a little girl anymore, and I'm definitely have grown with this injury. This injury definitely, like, unfortunately, when I see my doctor, it's either we figure out the exact cause and root source of why I'm still in chronic pain every single day. I don't go a day without pain. I've been in pain ever since the incident, so I'm technically disabled. And my meeting with my doctor, when she clears me to wrestle again, I'm gonna see if I do need to make it officially, like, as in I have the sticker, I have the card, and I'm like, hey, I'm technically disabled, because there's some people that struggle with mental health and they're technically disabled because of their social anxiety and stuff, and I respect that. There's amputees that do it, so I'm kind of like
yeah.
debating on if I need to officially be labeled as that, so then I can inspire other people to say, hey, listen, even though I'm disabled doesn't mean I can't be a professional wrestler. Even though I was in a wheelchair for years, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be a professional wrestler. And even if I end up back in that wheelchair in the next 10 years because my body's getting older, so be it. I was a professional wrestler and I am a professional wrestler. And I feel like that could be a great story to tell people that it's not, don't give up. Nothing can stop you, even your handicap.
No, certainly not. I have the utmost confidence that you'll be just fine, and in no time you'll get cleared and make a return to
Thank
the
you.
ring. Is there
I believe
anybody? Is there anybody that you want to wrestle against? Should you get cleared to wrestle again?
my first match is going to be with Nate.
Okay.
He's going to be my first match back. He's going to properly introduce the Black Dahlia to the it's going to be extremely theatrical. It's going to be, you're going to see me as me, and after the match I will be officially the Black Dahlia. I will be officially the Chainsaw Queen. And after the match, the match is going to be a storytelling of what happened to me in the wrestling community, what happened to that little actress, what happened to that innocent little girl to create the Black Dahlia. And that's basically Nate going to introduce me, get to push me back. So yeah, wrestling Nate is going to be amazing.
I'd love to see that. Oh man, Dahlia, this has been wonderful getting the chance to talk with you.
Thank you
Best of
for
luck.
listening to me ramble.
Oh no, stories like these are important, and I think that we try to, one of the things we try to do in addition to doing, stories about, giving back to your communities and things like that, is to inspire someone that may be going through some tough times, whether that is, sadness or pain, just paying it forward to the next person. So it means a lot for for me to have you on. It means a lot for you to come on the show, and I'd love to have you back on again, and especially I'd love to hear some more wrestling stories of you getting back in there.
Of course, yes, I'll come on anytime. Just DM me and we'll make it happen.
Definitely. Where can people find you on social media?
Just look me. There are a couple fake accounts out there, so just look for the one, I guess, the most followers. I don't know. Like I created a new Facebook, and Facebook makes me flip my name, so it's Dahlia Black, but that's Facebook. Instagram is the Black Dahlia, but just make sure it's my account with the most followers, because there are like 3 fake Instagrams. And then I just created a Twitter, I think, last year, so the Black Dahlia. And then I also have my modeling account, which the link is. Am I allowed to name it on your podcast, or?
Yes, promote anything.
All right, so OnlyFans as the Black Dahlia. You guys can interact there with me. I always respond to DMs on there, and I love talking to my fans on there. It's a great interaction. Yeah, and then also YouTube. You guys can check out under Evil Nate some of the upcoming gimmick YouTube promos that we have, and TikTok as well.
Dahlia, thank you again. You're more than welcome to come back, and I look forward to seeing you back in the ring.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me on, guys.
All right, you're welcome.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.